outdoor but not on sidewalks. Spring Valley has an ordinance that allows some things on the sidewalks. I called down to the municipal league today, because Spring Valley's ordinance says no alcohol.
That's what we got in ours.
Yeah,
We have alcohol.
well, anyway, I sent you guys today Spring Valley's
Okay.
and then Oglesby's, which basically just substitutes Oglesby for Spring Valley, because I didn't know how you wanted to do it. I did talk to the municipal league today. The attorney at the municipal league indicated that she thought that if municipalities, it was a local decision, if they wanted to allow them on the sidewalks, she thought the governor's office would not balk at that. She said they're expecting more rules from the governor's office, either, I didn't check today, I was
Today or
out again.
tomorrow.
Today, tomorrow, or next week. But anyway, that ordinance was just something that Spring Valley did because they had requests from a business to do it. I think I would probably best summarize that by saying that I think they were kind of ambivalent about whether they wanted to really do it, but they sort of figured, well, we got a request from a business, you know, it's gonna help the business. Yeah, so, okay.
6:30, call the Oglesby City Council meeting to order, special council meeting.
Augubright. Cullinan.
Here.
Curran.
Here.
Mieski. Here. Gamara.
Aye.
Pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next is place on file proposal from the Putnam County painting bid for water tower painting.
Okay, so as you know, last week actually earlier in the week, we rejected all the bids because the bids came in anywhere ranging from $285,000 to $543,000. And we were estimating the top end would be about $240,000. So we looked at different ways that we could probably cut the cost, and we came up with some options, and we were able to get a proposal in from Putnam County Painting, and they were able to come in at $220,000. So significantly less than what our highest bid was. I don't know if anybody has any special questions about anything about the bid or the proposal or anything like that.
I think just so it's in the minutes for the record. So it's in the minutes for the record. The Illinois legislature has passed a statute which, after June 1st, as I understand it, is going to add additional requirements when you paint water towers. So the price is going to go up after June 1st because of these additional requirements. Because everybody may be wondering, what's the bum's rush if we just did this on Monday, why don't we just wait and do it in June? Well, the way the legislation is written, any contracts awarded after June 1st, you got the new rules. And although I don't pretend to completely understand the new rules, because they're technical, they're dealing with coatings and other stuff, I believe Commissioner Kern, you talked to Don Bixby.
We talked at length, yeah. So couple things with it. We're actually relatively pleased with the last business that did it. It's the exact same one we're going with. On average, these coatings last 12 to 15 years. We got 25 years out of the last one. Probably more than we needed to go for it. It's fantastic. So we're going to continue to go with them. The rules of what they have to do change after June 1st. So even if we had a bid that was within our price range last meeting, we probably would have had to have another meeting anyways before June 1st. To get it actually adopted. So we're still going to have another meeting next week, either Thursday or Friday, to get this actually finally approved, so that way we fall into the rules before June 1st.
Now, the other question, so everybody understands, the provisions in the Illinois Municipal Code provide that you can award a contract for even more than $25,000, but there has to be an affirmative vote of four, at least four of the five members of the council. That would include the mayor. So, number one, we have to make sure next week that we have four people here. Even though three's a quorum, that won't do you any good, okay? You're gonna have to have four people, and obviously there's gonna have to be four affirmative votes. I mean, if more than two people are not in favor of this, then we might as well just rebid it, but that's gonna kick you in
Correct.
past that June 1st.
And if we delay past this year, then we go into a different, what they call it, lead remediation. That's why we're at the max length. We gotta get it done this summer. If not, then the price is well over $500,000, and that's without even the modifications from the June 1st changes. So it's probably gonna be higher than that. So that's why it's important to be able to get this done the next week.
If I'm understanding the revisions in the bid and why it's lower, is because instead of being two-tone, so to speak, it's one paint color now?
So originally, I think when I talked to maybe a few council members, we were looking at some of the ways that we could cut the cost. And one of them was to remove the two-tone option for the bottom. The good news is that is not gonna be an issue. For what we see, there's gonna be no difference. The change was in the bid process, they put for 3 coats. 3 coats is not required. But the problem is if you do the bid process, you have to award to the lowest bidder. And depending on the quality of work that some people might do or their application procedures, 2 coats, if it's applied poorly, might not be enough. So because this was a trusted business and they did the exact same thing 25 years ago, with them doing the 2 coats, which is all that's technically needed, that's what significantly dropped the price. Okay. If there's no other questions, I'd like to make a motion to place on file proposal from Putnam County painting bid for the water tower recoating.
Yeah, it's an ordinance, accepting the bid for the water tower recoating.
Is that an issue that we didn't have it in the agenda like that?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so let me read it off then. Let's go over here. I'd like to make a motion to place on file ordinance number 1115-052820, an ordinance approving a contract with Putnam County Painting Incorporated to repaint Oglesby Water Tower.
I'll second. Augubright. Cullinan.
Aye.
Curran.
Aye.
Mieski. Aye. Rivara.
Aye. Next on the agenda is public comments. Having none, we would want to have some discussion on the, what do I want to say? Sidewalk dining.
We can't take any action because this is not.
Just, no action, just some discussion.
Yeah, I thought it'd be worthwhile to have a discussion. So we did get a draft in today. Now normally the draft would not go up until the June 1st meeting, but when I took a look at it, I'm not sure how much there could be some issues that might not apply as well to Oglesby and some things we should discuss. I just thought it would be helpful if we wanted to discuss it now. That way it'd give us a little bit of lead time. Because I think the original plan was to place on file June 1st and approve of the 15th. But if we have our first discussion about it on the 1st, I don't know if there'll probably be a lot of modifications that have to happen.
So if anyone's listening from the public to understand this, yesterday, Governor Pritzker's office announced that they were going to be changing some of the requirements for parts of the state entering into phase 3 of the reopening order. The expectation is that next Friday, on May 29th, our region will move from phase 2 to phase 3. One of the changes, there were a few changes that Governor Pritzker made. One of them, and I think that the governor's office has been receiving a lot of input and a lot of concerns expressed by small business owners who may own restaurants and bars. You know, I mean, certainly if you're a bar, you're out of business, you know, right now. So one of the changes that the governor indicated is going to be made, is that the governor's office will allow for outside dining and outside alcohol service. So a bar, as long as they have like a patio or do it on their parking lot, as long as they're on their property, a tavern or bar could open up. They do have to maintain social distancing, which is tables have to be no more than 6 feet apart. There's still the 10-person rule. There's still rules about the servers wearing masks. I don't want to try to go through all the rules. But the question comes up, what do you do with those businesses that unfortunately don't have a parking lot, or don't have a, don't have a patio, for example? Just, the ordinance I sent you for Oglesby was, all I did was take an ordinance that Spring Valley had adopted a couple of years ago. It had nothing to do with COVID. Spring Valley was approached by a downtown business that wanted to be able to put a few tables on the sidewalk. And they were a restaurant, but they wanted to allow for like outdoor dining, kind of, they were sort of saying, some cities, allow this for the ambiance. So Spring Valley held some meetings and they came up with the draft ordinance that I sent to you. Now, one thing you'll find in there if you look at it, is that because they were approached by a restaurant and they were concerned about policing, alcohol consumption, on the sidewalks, the Spring Valley said no alcohol. So that's in, all I did for the ordinance I sent to you is I took the Spring Valley ordinance, changed Spring Valley to Oglesby, and I changed the, what streets, Walnut Street, those are basically the only changes I made. So you may want, if the purpose of adopting this is to try to help those restaurants or bars that don't have a parking lot or a deck that they can use, then you obviously may want to change the restriction that I have in there regarding no alcohol. The other thing, the governor's order still says, the tables are going to have to be 6 feet apart. So I don't know for a business that's talking about tables in front of the business, I don't know how much help this is going to be, depending upon how wide your storefront is. Basically, if your storefront's 25 feet wide, well, you have 3 tables is all at 6 feet apart. And then if you're figuring you're not going to want to block your door, you may only be down to 2 tables. But nonetheless, that's something that you can look at and we can consider. If you want changes, I'd like to have them so that I can get them ready so we can put it on file at the June 1st meeting. Or if you want to, you're going to have another meeting next week to approve the water tower meeting ordinance. You could put it on file then. You wouldn't be able to adopt it at the June 1st meeting because that won't be 7 days, but you could
7 days after.
7 days, if you didn't want to make a business wait until the 15th, for example, to use the sidewalks.
Jim, it's my understanding that in this going to phase 3, that it's outside. It's
Not
still-
inside.
It's still prohibited inside.
Correct.
And in establishments that have a place where they could put up a tent, where they have a patio.
You could use your parking lot, you wouldn't even have to put up a tent. I don't think of anything that would prohibit you from
It
using
would,
it.
but the distancing would have to be adhered to. Numbers per table would
Yeah,
have to be
well,
adhered to.
Yeah, the social distancing says no more than 10. So you're 6 feet apart, but all I mentioned, I think everybody should be aware of, if somebody put a table that literally, was, let's say those, some places used to use those schools, those
Yeah.
utility schools. If that was big enough that you could have 12 people around it, you still can't have 12 people around it. You would be, what I'm saying, you'd have to be not only 6 feet apart, but you're gonna be limited to.
Is that per table?
Yeah.
Okay.
practical matter, I don't know if they're gonna have any tables big enough that you could get more than 10 around it, but I think.
And still fit on the sidewalk.
Well, but it would also apply if any businesses have questions, even on their own private property, the 6 feet apart and the 10 people still apply.
But that wouldn't be with the sidewalk ordinance, because you said that. would
Correct,
be-
that's
that-
not, yes.
Yeah, if
I'm
they're
sorry.
doing their own thing in their own parking
Yes,
lot, for
yes.
example, that's separate.
Yes, but even in their own parking lot, they're still subject to the 10 people, to the 6 feet apart, to wearing the masks. Unless they change this from what was issued yesterday, between now and next
Well,
week.
this is the reason I asked the question at the last meeting about, because we're doing a lot of talking about COVID. And again, I'm all for finding either bump outs or ways for other businesses to be creative and have other money drivers for the city. That's fantastic. The problem is, there's a big difference, I think, if we're looking for just a temporary fix to do, or, because when I look at this ordinance, I don't see bump outs addressed. And I know you just threw it together because what you had from already written up.
Spring Valley decided not to.
Yeah, but if we're gonna do like we suggested, where we're gonna try to find a permanent solution that could work forever, it's not addressed in here yet. That's my only concern. So, even in the ordinance, I think on the second page, it refers to COVID-19 pandemic. So when I look at this ordinance, it kind of looks to me like we're talking about something that is temporary in the first place.
Well, I was just trying to give a reason as to why we were, because like I
Jason,
said, Spring Valley did it because they were approached by a business. I'm
I
assuming you
think,
haven't been approached by a business, so I wanted to explain why you were.
I think it's a starting point. It's to help businesses survive. And also, we can work down to bump outs or whatever. One of the things that I do want, I want the businesses to be involved in the discussion and in the resolution what we come up with. We can start with down here at point A and have to go to point B to C, and we may have to make some adjustments along the way.
So your thought process is, even though it might start as a COVID thing, we can just expand upon the same ordinance to expand out to more permanent things? Is that kind of what you're thinking of?
Yeah, there's gonna be things that are gonna work for it, and there's gonna things that we're gonna say, hey, this won't work.
And does Cabo have a meeting coming up anytime soon?
Well,
Does Cabo have a meeting anytime soon to address or
we're
plan?
gonna try to get them to a meeting to address it. The other part is to have a meeting under the current guidelines, if I'm correct, there can be no more than 10 people.
I Zoom meet and teleconference
Well,
all the time.
We could do that.
Mhm.
But, if the people are interested, and I think it's in their interest to be, to do that. If we get the buy-in where we can, to have one of these Zoom meetings or anything else, I'm all for it.
Jason, I want to make it clear that although the ordinance does reference in one of the whereases, those whereas clauses are just kind of reasons why the
Okay.
municipality is taking the action they're taking. The ordinance that I sent to you is not restricted to just COVID. It's a sidewalk. It would apply beyond COVID, unless you tell me not to do that. I mean, obviously, I could limit it, but that's not what this ordinance does.
And I think so, we're trying to just get them open right now, we're gonna see how it goes, and really, it's a good test to see how they handle the on the sidewalk kind of stuff, and then we can feel if people want bump outs, that kind of stuff, and we still have a license that we can take away if they get out of control.
Well, that was the reason I was asking, because to me, if we're gonna do the bump outs, so I did contact Chamlin's to get some specifics and stuff. What I got back was very technical. The funny thing is, I actually think the ordinance is probably the best way to do it. In part 3, it just says, it doesn't go anything specifics at all, it just says Department of Transportation, rules in compliance with Americans Disabilities Act, instead of having specific. That's probably a smarter and easier thing to do.
We did that, just so I don't mean to cut you off, we did that in Spring Valley because Mike Burketta from Chalmers, who handles the Spring Valley's engineering stuff, mentioned, he said, you're gonna have to leave state. We wanted to make sure that if we let them do it, somebody, remember this is pre-COVID, somebody didn't think they could have a table from the front of their business to the curb and then people couldn't get through. That's why we put on, and so.
It has
we
to
knew
be
we had
handicap
ADA
accessible.
issues and, and other DOTs, so we just thought, let the engineers, that's why we didn't try to put it all in there, let the engineers handle it.
Okay.
Probably a good idea to get a hold of all the restaurant owners or people that are gonna be serving food, and like you say, try to get them at a meeting. And talk to them, and, I mean, I don't know how many we got, I don't think MJ is serving food anymore.
But bars can be open,
Yeah,
it's not just.
right, but I,
I'm not
Well, so-
opposed to having them if somebody wants to sit outside a particular establishment and have a beverage,
oh, no.
that's fine.
Yeah, I don't have an issue with that either, and according to this, though, it does say that, it says that as long as provisions, no alcoholic beverages may be served or consumed.
Again, it was for a different,
Right.
we were
So-
dealing with a different.
So and that's why I'd rather have this conversation earlier than waiting for the day of placing it on file. Is that something that is not allowed, that we can we authorize that for them to drink on a sidewalk?
Sure, because we don't have,
Right.
there is an ordinance stating that you can't have open liquor,
Yeah,
so you
it's
have
hard.
to just
Yeah,
overlap it for the time being.
yeah, it's,
Well, for the,
Yeah.
for what, and not only for the time being, Colin, if it works out, so what? What we
What's-
wanna do
It
is
does,
have
Alabama does it.
these.
What's the restriction you're talking about?
What's that?
What's the restriction? So there is,
There is a restriction on open liquor right now, but I said if this works out, I'm all for it too. I mean, it's something new they're starting, and, maybe it'll take off.
Well, I think that's more targeted people walking down the street drinking.
yeah, that's what I was gonna say, is that,
Yeah.
I don't know if you can speak, I know I'm not trying to throw you on the spot, but, I don't know a whole lot about my understanding of open container is traveling with it.
that's the typical thing, but I mean, I think if we authorize this,
Yeah.
then it's okay.
It's fine.
Then it's not considered, okay.
Like I said, Spring Valley didn't do that, because that's not what they were trying to address with this.
And the ones that walk around with open liquor, they're gonna walk around with open liquor anyhow, so.
Well, I don't know if we,
Well, they do.
Not help us, big fella, you know.
that is not authorized,
Well,
make
they're
that clear.
authorized, but they do. You're never gonna stop that.
Again,
For what it's worth, and I don't know that there would be any, any benefit to this, but, Spring Valley is going to have a special meeting next Wednesday, and they're inviting the tavern and the restaurant owners, if they're interested, to attend it, so we can discuss, this ordinance is basically the Spring Valley ordinance, how we're gonna change it, and it's a call, if you don't wanna go, it's a call in, and I'll have the information, if anybody wants to listen, call in and listen. Again, I don't know how much cross-pollination, for lack of a better word, there, I don't know how many things that are, I don't know how many things that are gonna be applicable to the 100, 200 blocks east and west St. Paul Street are gonna be applicable to Walnut Street here. There may be some, there may not. So but if anybody's interested in hearing what they're saying,
I think it's a good idea, at least let them get back in business and try to make something out of this community.
now there's one other thing I flagged I saw in here. Now, it looks, when I looked at the schematics for the city and stuff like that, it looks like the location you had was based on the downtown district area, which is fine. But technically, there is another business that could probably use that. I don't know if they're gonna use it or not, but they're outside of that range.
we can just let me know and change it.
But
I
is it a
called-
sidewalk or is it their parking lot?
Yeah.
I don't think they have a parking lot that I know of, so it'd be sidewalk.
What I did, when I did this, I called the clerk's office and I said, because I was just thinking of the taverns, and I said, Amy, what's the first north-south street, the north-south street that goes between the police station and the school? And that's Woodlawn, is that correct?
Yeah, wouldn't.
Woodland, okay. Then I said, Amy, give me the first north-south street that's immediately east of Chippies, because I didn't think there was anything there, but I must have just missed a tavern that I wasn't thinking of. So that's Field Avenue?
Yeah, right at the corner of, just on the other side of the corner, there's a business that would be.
That's what I was trying to, but if I got that grouped up, we could go, I just didn't know what the street numbers, whether I was gonna say Walnut Street from
Yeah.
108 to 195, I didn't know what the
Gotcha.
numbers were. So,
We We would also.
It was easy in spring, but
If
100.
if you're looking at outside dining, you've got, Garzanelli's down there that's looking to open.
Yeah, now they can also
And-
use their, you could certainly include them, but they've got parking lots there.
Well, the same way with Cindy's, she's got a parking lot that she could use, whether they would, I don't know.
The only thing that's different is I don't think they have sidewalk though. I don't think is there sidewalk there? I don't think there is.
No,
Well, yeah, but I mean, the tables on the sidewalk.
Is there sidewalk there? In front?
but you got parking lots.
But,
Yeah,
But I
that's why.
think this is something with discussion, we can.
We're only gonna have 10 people,
you might
or
want
20
to
people.
like nice Columbus, American Legion, because they wanna do fish, they can open up for fish, but they gotta sell it out.
Well, like we're saying though,
Or-
if
or,
they're on their,
I didn't think of the Elks either.
but if they're on their own parking lot, this doesn't have anything
Yeah,
to do with this
doesn't apply.
ordinance
They're
at
on
all.
their own part.
They're under the
just
governor's ordinance then, right? Yeah, or
We,
ordinance.
we do need to make sure we include the pub.
Oh, yeah.
You know, this is gonna be
Anybody,
an evolving thing, we're just gonna have to move forward. Okay?
All right.
Well, if anyone wants, between now and whenever we're gonna, are you gonna set your next, special meeting to do the water tower? Because, are you gonna pick a date and time? Because, if anybody gets me something you want changed between now and then, I can make those changes. The only thing I wanted to point out is next Thursday, I have a meeting that I have to attend from 5 to 7, so Rico's here from our office. If we're gonna do it at, well, my meeting may last past 7, but if we're gonna do it next Thursday, either I have to do it like at 4 o'clock, and I don't know how that works for the people that are working, or I would have to, have somebody else in my office.
But even if we did have it placed on file next Thursday, you're saying because it deals with public property, we wouldn't be able to approve it at the Monday meeting anyway?
Correct.
So, I'm not sure if there's a lot of value in that then.
That's fine. I'm just mentioning that you're gonna have the meeting anyway. That would allow you then to pass that sidewalk thing the first, you wouldn't be able to pass it June 1st, but if you wanted to call another special meeting, June
7
2nd, 3rd,
days
4th,
after.
the 4th, you could.
Well, there would be an advantage of getting it on file at least, because that means if it's on file, people have access to it, and if business owners or residents had concerns, they could discuss it at the June 1st meeting, well before we adopted it even.
If we got it.
It's
if we
supposed to
got
be
it
on file.
On file and approved, we could always, make adjustments.
Well, I wanna be careful that the
Okay.
statutory section says that the ordinance is to be placed on file in the manner that it's adopted. Not that you can't
Yeah.
amend it, but you place it on file, let's just say you place it on file, it's June 1st, you're gonna pass it on June 15th, or you're gonna pass it on June 8th, because it only has to be 7 days. We typically use 2 weeks because we don't wanna call special meetings. But if you're gonna pass it, if you're gonna put it on file June 1st, and then you're gonna wanna make changes to it and then adopt it on June 15th, it's supposed to be passed in the form that it's placed on file,
Got it.
just so everybody
Well,
understands that.
think if we could kind of just put that ordinance out and make it available
Yeah.
now, we could
Yeah,
put it on file the 28th and meet on the 4th, and then it'd be passed, right? The only reason I'm saying that is because we want them to open up as fast as possible, because they've been
If we-
closed for 2 months.
If we thought it was important enough for that, then yeah, we could.
I really think it.
But either way, then if that's the case, I think just getting it on file earlier than later is better, because that way if something's really wrong with it or something, at least we've identified it earlier than later.
the one thing you guys, my consensus is that the one thing tomorrow you want me to do is take out prohibition on serving
Yes.
alcohol.
Yes.
Correct?
Please.
That-
Yes.
correct, okay.
Now, the other
I
thing
can at
is,
least do that, at least do
Yeah.
that.
well, so to follow up with that, there is other requirement that it's for dining for food only, because there are certain establishments in town that do not have food and have liquor only. Are we gonna take that out as well?
And they only
Would we have
have
to?
sidewalk?
I would assume, well, I can do
Yeah.
whatever you guys tell me. to
Yeah,
do.
so,
I think-
well, do we have to take the food out if we wanted
They have
them to be able to serve alcohol, or we can
Okay.
say food and alcohol?
We just say food and alcohol.
Food and
It's not
alcohol,
allowed.
okay. So we'll just say
Covers
food
I can
and
at
or
least start working
alcohol.
on that, so I've got
Yeah,
that.
I get that. But more importantly, do we at least have 4 out of 5 people available, next Thursday?
Yes, I do.
Yes.
All right, cool.
Because as I indicated, Tom, you weren't here, to adopt, you can legally adopt, you'll award the contract to Putnam County Paving, but it has to have 4 affirmative votes. So if we would only have 3 people here,
I know.
even if they all vote in favor of it,
Doesn't count.
it doesn't count,
I got
it didn't pass.
And you might have missed this part too, but after June 1st, there's different rules and regulations. We wouldn't be able to adopt the exact same contract. We'd have to modify it, which would cost a lot more.
That's in the ordinance, right?
I just mentioned that there were changes
Okay.
that would make it more expensive, yeah. As a reason why we're doing this way,
Okay.
as opposed to go to bid.
With that, I only got one other quick thing. I've had a number of calls this week about a raccoon problem. Please, please do not feed them. The city cannot go down there and remove them. We'll give you, we'll put you in contact with people that will get licensed trappers to remove them off your property. But when cornered, they can become very vicious and very aggressive. So with that,
I think
try to work.
just all wild animals in general is what we should not be feeding, so,
Well,
just across the board at this point.
okay. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Augubright,
Aye.
Cullinan,
Aye.
Curran,
Aye.
Miyake,
Aye.
Rivera.
Aye.
And, just remember one thing, we want to make sure that you let Amy know, whatever time you're gonna do this, whether it's Thursday or Friday next week, she's gotta have it 48 hours in advance to the press.